Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm so glad you're here with us.
Great to be here.
We are broadcasting this deep dive as part of the Funeral Channel Network, which, well, it means we are looking at a topic today that, let's be honest, most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid.
Oh, absolutely. We actively avoid thinking about it until we are, forced to.
Until you absolutely have to.
And it's the one universal human experience that we have basically zero training for.
Zero. None. And because of that lack of training, we default to the standard operating procedure.
The script.
Exactly, the script. You know it. You put on the uncomfortable suit or the black dress. You go to the dimly lit room.
Right.
You sit in a hard folding chair and you just stare at the back of someone's head for an hour while trying not to cry too loudly.
Trying to hold it all in.
It's so stiff. It's awkward. And frankly, for a lot of people, it's traumatizing in a way that has almost nothing to do with the death itself. It's the ritual.
It's the performance of grief versus the actual messy internal experience of it.
Yes, that's it exactly. So today, we are tearing up that script.
Ripping it to shreds.
We are looking at a really fascinating body of research and literature. It's titled Healing Through Creation, Therapeutic Art in Private Memorials. And before you, our listener, roll your eyes and think, okay, great, we're going to talk about doing arts and crafts at a funeral. I need you to pump the brakes for a second.
Please do, because that's not what this is about.
Not at all. Because what we are actually talking about here is neuroscience. We're talking about how the human nervous system processes trauma and why that traditional sit-and-listen funeral might actually be biologically counterproductive.
That is the headline right there. It's a fundamental mismatch. We are looking at a huge mismatch between our biology, which is, ancient, and our social customs, which are relatively modern and very, very rigid.
So the mission for this deep dive is to explore something called participatory healing.
A powerful concept.
Yeah. We're going to look at how moving from being a passive spectator to an active creator literally changes the brain's response to loss.
It rewires the experience.
We have so much ground to cover, from the psychology of the vagus nerve all the way to the simple logistics of setting up a memory jar. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
I want to start with that visualization I mentioned, the traditional funeral. When I say those words, what is the immediate, the physiological response you get in your body?
Oh, it's instant. It's tightness.
Yeah.
Specifically in the chest and the throat. It's a suppression response.
Yeah.
Your body knows you're entering a space where the social contract says, be quiet, be still, don't make a scene.
Right, hold it together.
Hold it together.
Yeah.
But internally, your body is, it's just screaming.
Yeah.
You've just lost someone you love. Your cortisol is spiking. Your fight or flight system is fully activated. You are biologically wired to wail, to tear your clothes, to move, to run, to do anything. And yet, you are forced to sit, motionless, in a wooden chair and listen to a eulogy.
It's like flooring the gas pedal and the brake at the same time.
That's a perfect analogy. It's a cognitive dissonance that manifests physically. You have a Paleolithic nervous system that wants to process this enormous event through action.
What do you mean by that? Through action?
Well, for most of human history, grief was active. It was, building a pyre, digging a grave, washing a body. It was kinetic.
Things you did with your hands.
Things you do with your entire body. But in the modern Western model, we've outsourced all the action to professionals. The mortician prepares the body.
Right.
The landscapers dig the hole. The clergy does the talking.
And the mourner is left with nothing to do.
Absolutely nothing. You are left with all this kinetic energy, this revving engine you mentioned, and your car is in neutral.
And that energy has to go somewhere.
It has to. So if it can't go out, it goes in. It gets stuck. It turns into anxiety, panic attacks, or that numb, dissociated feeling people so often describe after a funeral, like they weren't even there.
So the whole premise of healing through creation is that we need to give that energy a job. We need to put the car in gear.
Precisely. We are moving from what the source calls a passive ceremony.
Where you're just an audience member.
Exactly. You're watching a production about the deceased. And we're moving to a participatory gathering where you are an active agent in your own mourning process.
And this is where that distinction between a public funeral and a private memorial becomes so important in the source material. Why does the size of the room matter so much? It seems like a small detail, but it's not.
It's everything. It all comes down to safety and what the research called emotional proximity.
Okay.
In a large public funeral, let's say, 300 people at a cathedral, you are performing. You can't help it.
You're on stage.
You're on stage. You're conscious of your posture. You're worried about who is looking at you. You are managing your public face.
You're holding it together. There's that phrase again.
Right. And you simply cannot do deep therapeutic work while you are holding it together. Why not? Because that work requires vulnerability. It requires letting the mask drop. The research strongly suggests that these art-based interventions work best in smaller, more intimate settings.
Like a living room, a backyard.
A living room, a backyard, small community hall, places where the audience is actually your support system. They're not spectators, they're your people.
So the guard comes down?
The guard comes down,
yeah.
And that's the key. When the guard comes down, the hands can start to work.
Okay, let's dig into the why a little more before we get to the how. The source material uses this phrase I love, grief is a full-body experience. And I feel like we hear that and we nod, but we don't really get what it means. We think grief is sadness, which is a brain thing, an emotion.
And that's the fundamental mistake. We treat grief as a cognitive problem.
A puzzle to be solved.
Yes. We think if we can just find the right words or hear the right speech, we will solve the grief. But grief isn't a math problem. It's a physiological state of being. It lives in your tissues.
So walk me through the biology of that. When I'm grieving, what is my body actually doing? What's happening inside?
Your nervous system is likely. It's oscillating wildly between two states, hyperarousal and hyperarousal.
Okay, what's the difference?
Hyperarousal is the anxiety. It's the restlessness, the heart pounding, the feeling like you need to crawl out of your own skin.
The revving engine.
The revving engine. And hyperarousal is the opposite. It's the shutdown, the numbness, the zombie mode where you feel like you're wrapped in cotton wool.
And just sitting still in a pew doesn't help either of those states.
No. In fact, it often makes them much worse. If you're hyper-aroused, sitting still feels like actual torture. If you're hyper-aroused, sitting still just lets you sink deeper and deeper into that pit of numbness.
Okay, so this is where embodied cognition comes in. I saw that in the research.
Yes, exactly.
So one of those $10 terms. Break it down for us.
Right, sounds academic, but the concept is really intuitive. It's the theory that we think with our bodies, not just our brains.
It's not a top-down command center.
Not at all. It's a two-way street, a constant feedback loop. Our physical actions directly influence our mental and emotional state. So when we engage our hands in a simple, repetitive, creative task like painting or writing or stacking stones, we are engaging the parasympathetic nervous system.
The calming system.
The calming system. The brakes. We are sending a signal from the hands up the arm to the brain that says, I am here, I am safe, I am doing something manageable.
So the action itself is a regulator. It's not even about what you're making.
The action is the regulator.
Yeah.
It's a massive one. And it brilliantly bypasses the language centers of the brain, specifically Broca's area, which often shut down during trauma anyway.
Wow.
I mean, have you ever noticed how hard it is to speak when you're really, truly crying?
Oh, it's impossible. You just choke up. The words, they're just not there. It's like the connection is cut.
That's a real thing. That's because the language center is literally offline. Your brain has rerouted all power to the emotional and survival centers.
But other parts are still working.
Yes. The motor cortex, which controls your hands, the visual cortex, those are still online. Art provides a language that doesn't require words.
An alternative language.
It's an alternative language rooted in movement, texture, and color. It allows you to express the chaos inside you without forcing you to articulate a single coherent sentence.
That is such a huge relief, because I think the pressure to say the right thing at a funeral is just, it's crushing.
It's immense.
You know, I'm sorry for your loss. It starts to feel like cardboard after the 10th time you say it.
It feels like a script. And scripts are cognitive. They live in the head. Art is visceral. It lives in the body.
Okay, there's another psychological concept the source mentions that I want to unpack. Meaning making. It sounds a little bit abstract. We are making meaning. What does that actually look like in this context?
Yeah, it can sound a bit floaty, but it's really concrete. Meaning making is a crucial part of what's known as the dual process model of grief. This model basically says that healthy grieving involves oscillating or swinging back and forth between two things. On one side, you have loss-oriented stressors.
That's the crying, feeling the pain.
Yes, so that's feeling the pain, the sadness, looking at old photos, crying.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, you have restoration-oriented stressors.
That's the practical stuff.
That's doing the laundry, paying the bills, going back to work, distracting yourself with a movie, moving forward with life.
So we have to ping-pong back and forth between those two.
Exactly. Healthy grieving is a dance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get stuck in one, it becomes pathological.
What do you mean?
Well, if you only stay in the loss side
Yeah.
and you never do the laundry, you collapse into depression.
Right.
But if you only stay in the restoration side and never cry, you're repressing, and that will come back to bite you later.
Okay, so where does art fit in?
Art sits perfectly in the middle. It's a bridge. You are doing a task, which is restoration-oriented, but the task itself is about the loss.
Oh, that's so interesting. So it does both at the same time?
It does both simultaneously. It bridges the gap, and it allows you to externalize the internal experience.
Unpack that. Externalize.
When you create something, even if it's just a scribble on a piece of paper, you are taking the abstract pain that's inside you and turning it into a concrete object that is outside of you.
You're making it real.
You're making it real. You can look at it. You can hold it. It's no longer just this invisible ghost haunting your nervous system. It's a thing in the world.
It's almost like a secular exorcism in a way.
In a way, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are casting the feeling out of your body and into the physical realm where you can actually interact with it.
I love that. Okay, I think we've sold the why. We have the biology, the psychology, the neurology. It all points to doing something. Now I want to get to the how, because this is where the skeptics, and I mean, I include myself here sometimes, get a little nervous.
This is a valid fear.
I just picture a funeral turning into like a chaotic kindergarten classroom with glue and glitter everywhere.
Sticky, messy situation.
Yeah. But the source material provides a really elegant toolkit of specific activities that are designed to be low stakes and high impact. So let's walk through them. The first one is the simplest, the memory jar.
This is the perfect entry point. I call it the entry-level drug for participatory healing.
I like that.
It's accessible, it's neat, and it's familiar enough that it doesn't feel too strange.
But describe it for me, because if you just put out an old jam jar and some Post-it notes, it kind of feels like a suggestion box at a deli. Tell us how we did.
Right. No. Context and materials are everything. You need a beautiful container, maybe a large glass vase, a ceramic urn, or even a simple, elegant wooden box.
I think that feels special.
It has to feel special.
Yeah.
And you need high-quality paper. Not sticky notes, not flimsy printer paper, heavy cardstock.
Why does the paper quality matter so much?
It's all about sensory feedback. Writing on a flimsy piece of paper feels disposable. It feels like a memo. Writing on heavy stock feels permanent. It feels important. It tells your subconscious, this matters. And you need good pens.
Yes. The good pens. Do not put out the cheap ballpoints that skip and die.
Never. The ink needs to flow smoothly. The whole physical experience should feel effortless.
And the prompt is simple.
Very simple. Write a memory, a message, a wish, or a reflection for the deceased. Fold it and place it in the jar. That's it.
So why is this better than the traditional open mic sharing session where people get up and tell a story?
For a few really critical reasons. First, and maybe most importantly, it removes the spotlight.
The terror of public speaking?
Public speaking is the #1 fear for most people. It often ranks higher than death itself. So asking a grieving person to stand up and perform is asking a tremendous amount. The jar allows for silence. It allows for privacy. You can write your note in a quiet corner, fold it up, and drop it in. You participate without ever having to perform.
It's democratic. Everyone gets a voice.
That is the perfect word for it. It's democratic. In a traditional eulogy, 1 or 2 people, usually the most eloquent or the closest relative, they get to define the public narrative of the deceased.
He was a hero. She was a saint.
Right. But maybe your relationship was different. Maybe you knew their grumpy side or their silly side or a secret kindness. The jar collects all the perspectives.
So it creates a more holistic narrative, a more complete picture.
Exactly. When you see that jar filling up with dozens of folded notes, you are seeing a visual representation of the community's collective memory. The grandchild's scrawled drawing of a stick figure is in there right next to the business partner's neatly written paragraph. They all mix together. They're all equal.
And you mentioned earlier it's a form of cognitive offload.
A huge one. There is a profound psychological relief in writing down a recurring thought, in that one memory or regret that's been looping in your head, like, I wish I had said I loved you one more time, and then physically putting it into a container.
You're sending the message.
You're telling your brain, message sent. You don't have to keep carrying this anymore. It's safe in here. You can let it go just a little.
Now, what about privacy? This is a big concern. If I write something deeply personal, I am terrified that my Aunt Linda is going to fish it out and read it to the entire room.
A total design failure if that happens. The host or the facilitator must make the rules crystal clear from the start. This jar is a vault.
A vault. I like that.
It is for the immediate family to keep. They might choose to read the notes tonight. They might wait and read them on the first anniversary in 10 years. They might never read them at all. The point is, it is their private keepsake.
So it's basically a time capsule.
It is. And knowing that it won't be read out loud immediately creates the psychological safety needed for honesty. If you know you aren't going to be fact-checked or judged by the room, you can write your actual truth.
That's powerful. Okay, let's level up the creativity. Activity number 2 from the toolkit, collaborative canvases.
This one is more visual, and it can create a really beautiful centerpiece for the room.
So what does it look like?
Imagine a large blank canvas set up on an easel. Or maybe a pre-drawn outline of something symbolic, like a large tree with bare branches. And nearby you have paints, markers, maybe some collage materials like fabric scraps or old photos.
And people are just supposed to go up and paint.
The instruction is usually very gentle and open-ended, something like, we invite you to add something to this canvas, a color that reminds you of them, a symbol, a word, a texture, a fingerprint.
See, this is where I freeze. This is my anxiety point. I can't draw. My stick figures are bad. I'm going to ruin the painting. I am. I'm going to make a big, ugly brown smudge, and everyone's going to look at it and say, who put that smudge there?
And that is the perfectionism trap. That is the single biggest barrier to this kind of therapeutic work.
So how do you get past it?
The facilitator has to frame this very, very carefully from the beginning. This is not about creating a masterpiece for the Louvre. It is not about skill.
It's not an art class.
It is not an art class. It's about a concept from Gestalt psychology called the unfinished Gestalt.
The what? Say that again.
The unfinished Gestalt. It's the idea that the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. The canvas starts blank. It's empty, like the hole the person has left in your lives.
Wow, okay.
As people come up and add to it, one by one, it becomes complex, messy, layered, and eventually beautiful. It visually mirrors the process of a community coming together to fill that void.
So the mess is actually the point. The imperfections are the point.
The mess is absolutely the point. Grief is messy. Life is messy. A person's life is a collage of a million different experiences and perspectives. If the painting looks too perfect and neat, it's not an honest representation.
I really like that idea of layers. The source material talks about that.
Yes, it's beautiful to watch. One person might paint a simple blue background to represent the ocean they loved. Then someone else comes and writes a favorite quote over it in silver marker. Then a grandchild glues a photograph on top of that.
And it becomes this rich, layered story.
It represents how our memories overlap and interact. We don't remember people in a vacuum. We remember them in the context of our shared experiences.
And on a very practical level, it gives the room a focal point that isn't the casket or the urn.
That is a huge, huge relief for the nervous system. In a traditional funeral, your eyes are constantly drawn to the symbol of death, the coffin.
It's unavoidable.
Here, you are staring at a symbol of life, of memory, of connection being created in real time. It completely shifts the energy in the room from end to continuation.
Okay, let's talk about the third activity, symbolic crafting. Specifically, the source spends a lot of time talking about using stones.
This is my personal favorite, especially for high anxiety situations or for people who are really struggling. The tactile engagement here is profound.
So why stones? What's so special about a rock?
Several things. Weight, temperature, texture. A smooth river stone has a coolness to it when you first pick it up, has a heft in your palm. When you hold a heavy, solid object in your hand, it is physically grounding. It works on a primal level. It pulls your awareness out of your racing, spiraling thoughts and anchors it in the physical sensation in your palm.
It's literally a panic attack.
It really is. It's an anchor.
Yeah.
So the setup is simple. You have a pile of clean, smooth stones. You have paint pens or permanent markers. And the invitation is simply to decorate a stone in honor of the person who died.
This feels very ancient. It reminds me of the Jewish tradition of leaving stones on a grave.
It absolutely taps into that deep cross-cultural history. Stones represent permanence. They weather the storms. Writing a name or a date or a single word like peace, love, dad on a stone feels solid and enduring in a way that paper just doesn't.
And again, the bar for entry is so low, you don't have to be an artist. You can literally just color the whole rock red if that's what you feel.
Or you can just hold the rock. That is a valid form of participation too.
Just holding it.
Absolutely. The act of selecting a stone that feels right to you, holding it for 10 minutes while you listen to stories, and then placing it in a communal bowl or basket. That is a complete ritual.
How is that a ritual?
Because you have moved an object from one place to another with intention. You have enacted a change in the physical world. In a moment where you feel completely powerless, that small act of agency can be incredibly powerful.
I have enacted a change. I'm still here. I can still do things.
Exactly. I am still here. My love is still here, and I am placing it in this bowl with everyone else's.
Wow. So we have what? Jars, canvases, stones. But I really want to talk about the where and the when. Section 3 of our deep dive is all about designing the experience, because you can't just, dump a bag of rocks on a folding table at a funeral home and expect magic to happen. Left.
No, that would probably just be confusing and maybe a little off-putting. The environment is absolutely crucial. You are consciously curating a space for vulnerability.
So what does that look like? What are the key elements?
It starts with lighting and sound. Harsh, overhead fluorescent lights are the enemy of vulnerability.
The ultimate mood killer.
They trigger a clinical or institutional response in our brains. You want soft, warm light. Lamps, maybe candles if it's safe. You want the acoustic environment to be gentle. Maybe some soft instrumental music, but nothing with lyrics that demand your attention.
And what about the setup of the supplies themselves?
The mantra here is inviting, not demanding.
What's the difference?
If the art supplies are in a messy heap in a cardboard box, it looks like a chore you have to clean up.
Right.
But if they're arranged beautifully pens fanned out in a rainbow on a nice piece of fabric, stones piled in a beautiful wicker basket, paper neatly stacked, it triggers curiosity. It looks like a gift waiting to be opened.
And where in the room do you put the station? Is it front and center?
The source suggests creating a side station. It shouldn't be the main stage. It shouldn't be right in front of the podium where everyone is staring. It needs to be a bit peripheral.
Why is that important?
To allow for what I call drifting. You want people to feel like they can drift over to the art table when they feel a wave of emotion and then drift back to the main group when they're ready.
It's an escape valve.
It's a healthy escape valve. If it's center stage, it feels like another performance. You're doing art for an audience. If it's off to the side, it's a personal refuge.
That makes so much sense. I'm picturing being at a memorial and someone starts telling a particularly heartbreaking story and you just feel yourself getting overwhelmed. Instead of having to flee to the bathroom, which is what I usually do.
We've all been there.
I could just quietly walk over to the stone table.
Exactly. You go to the table, you pick up a smooth, cool stone, you focus on its weight in your hand, you ground yourself. You are still present in the room, still part of the community, but you have shifted your focus to a simple, manageable task until the wave passes.
Now let's talk about the flow, the timing of all this. When does the art making happen? Is it just a free-for-all for 3 hours?
It can be. A continuous open station can work well. But the source suggests a couple of specific intentional times. One is using it as a grounding activity right upon arrival.
Walk me through what that would look like.
Okay, so think about the first 10 or 15 minutes of any memorial service or wake. People are just arriving. It's super awkward.
It's so awkward.
They don't know where to stand.
Yeah.
They don't know who to talk to. There is this high-frequency nervous energy in the room.
The hovering, everyone just kind of hovers.
Yes, the hovering.
Yeah.
If you give them a simple task immediately, welcome, we're so glad you're here. There's a table over here where you can take a flip of paper and write a memory for the jar. You solve the awkwardness instantly.
They give them a job.
Yeah, give them the job. Their brain goes, oh, I know how to do this. I can write a note.
Yeah.
It settles the energy in the room down almost immediately.
It breaks the ice without forcing people into that stilted, so how did you know him?
Right. Another powerful time to do it is at the end, after the heavy emotional lifting of the speeches and storytelling. You can use the art as a way to process what was just heard.
So a transition.
A transition. The facilitator could say something like, we've just heard all these beautiful, powerful stories. Now we invite you to go to the canvas and capture a feeling or a memory that came up for you. It gives people a nonverbal way to digest all that emotion.
The facilitation seems really tricky, though. You don't want to come across like a drill sergeant. Okay, everyone, pick up your markers and now be.
Please don't do that. The absolute golden rule here is invitation, not obligation.
Consent is key.
Emotional safety is entirely dependent on consent. There will always be people who do not want to participate, and that is 100% valid.
Uncle Bob might just want to sit in the corner with his coffee and stare at the floor, and that's okay.
That is his way of grieving. We are not trying to fix Uncle Bob.
We're not trying to force him into our idea of healing.
No. We are simply offering Uncle Bob a tool. If he doesn't want to use it, that is his choice, and it must be respected.
Yeah.
The phrasing should always be permissive and gentle. If you feel moved to, there is a station available for anyone who's interested. Never, ever. We are all going to do this now.
That feels so important. Okay, I want to pivot now to section 4, inclusivity. Because one of the things that drives me crazy about traditional funerals is how they implicitly and sometimes explicitly exclude certain types of people.
Yes.
And I'm thinking specifically about kids.
Oh, absolutely. They're often treated like a nuisance at these events.
I have taken my own kids to funerals, and it is a nightmare. They're bored out of their minds, they're confused, they are naturally fidgety, and I spend the entire time shushing them. Sit still, be quiet.
Which sends such a terrible message to the child. It tells them, your natural way of being, your energy, your grief, it's inappropriate here.
Right. And death is something we have to be very stiff and silent and serious about.
But developmentally, that's just not how they work. Children cannot process grief like adults. They don't have the abstract vocabulary. They don't have the long attention span. They process the world through play and action.
The source uses a term that I just love. It's called puddle jumping.
It's such a perfect image, isn't it? It's a classic concept in child grief psychology.
Explain it.
Adults tend to wade into the deep river of grief and let the current carry them for a while. Children puddle jump. They will jump right into a big puddle of grief. They'll cry, they'll scream, they'll ask a really blunt question about death, and then 30 seconds later, they'll jump right out and say, can I have a cookie? Can we go play on the swings?
And then 10 minutes later, they jump back in the puddle. It gives parents whiplash.
It gives parents whiplash, but it's an incredibly healthy and brilliant self-regulation strategy. That's how their little brains prevent from being completely overloaded by enormous emotions.
And the art station is the perfect puddle for them.
It is the perfect puddle. It allows them to engage with the grief in a concrete way. Draw a picture of Grandpa in heaven, and then immediately disengage. Draw a picture of a dinosaur, and then re-engage by adding glitter to Grandpa.
It validates their chaotic energy.
It validates that they are a welcome and important part of the grieving family. If the only way to participate is to sit still and listen to a 40-minute sermon, the child is effectively excluded. But if there is a canvas with markers, the child is included. They have a role. I am helping make the picture for Grandma.
And let's be honest, the kids are usually the ones who break the ice for the adults.
Always. 100% of the time. Once a 5-year-old starts enthusiastically drawing on the canvas, the self-conscious adults feel like they have permission to join in. Well, if little Timmy's doing it, I guess my smudge won't be so bad.
It's not just kids, though. The source talks about introverts and also a group they call instrumental grievers.
Yes. This is a really helpful distinction from grief theory. So you have intuitive grievers.
Who are they?
They are the ones who process grief primarily by feeling and sharing those feelings. They cry, they talk, they journal, they hug. Traditional funerals are, for the most part, designed for and by intuitive grievers.
But then you have instrumental grievers.
And they process grief primarily by doing, by thinking and acting. These are the people who, after a death, immediately start fixing the broken fence or planning the catering or creating a complex spreadsheet of who to notify. They express their grief through task completion.
I know so many people like this, often men, but certainly not always. And they can look like they aren't sad because they aren't crying.
But they completely devastated. They just need a different kind of container for that devastation. An art activity gives the instrumental griever a task. Build this, paint this, organize these stones into a pattern. It speaks their language. It allows them to show their love for the deceased through action, not just words.
It seems like all of this also helps with that idea of process over performance. We talked about the fear of doing it wrong.
The source is so clear on this point. There is no wrong. The ultimate goal is authenticity and relief, not aesthetic beauty.
So it's probably important for the facilitator to actually say that out loud. We are here to make a mess.
Yes. Give explicit permission to be messy. We aren't making art. We are making our feelings visible, and feelings are messy.
What about cultural or spiritual sensitivity? Can you do this kind of thing if you're, say, deeply religious?
Absolutely. Art is a neutral vessel. You can hold any water you pour into it.
What do you mean?
If you're a Catholic family, the stones could be painted with crosses or images of saints. The canvas could become a representation of heaven.
If you're Jewish, the stones already fit perfectly into existing tradition.
Perfectly. And if you're secular humanists, the art can be about nature or memory or community. It's endlessly adaptable.
It's neutral ground.
It is. It doesn't impose a theology. It supports whatever theology, or lack thereof, is already present in the room.
Okay, we are coming into the home stretch here. Section 5, the aftermath and integration. The service is over, the guests go home. In a traditional funeral, you're left with, what would? A glossy program that you inevitably throw away or shove in a junk drawer.
It becomes clutter, a sad piece of clutter.
But with this method, you are left with something tangible. The source calls them artifacts.
Artifacts of love, that's the phrase they use, and I think it's perfect. You have the jar full of handwritten notes, you have the finished collaborative canvas, you have the beautiful bowl of decorated stones.
So what do you do with them? Do they just go in a closet?
No, you integrate them into your life. The source connects this to continuing bonds theory.
Okay.
The old, outdated idea of grief was closure. You say goodbye, you get over it, you move on.
Sever the tie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the new science says that's not healthy or even possible.
Yeah.
The theory of continuing bonds suggests that you don't move on from the person, you move forward with them. You maintain a relationship with the deceased, it just takes a different form.
And the artifact becomes a way to maintain that bond.
Exactly. The memory jar sits on the mantle. On the anniversary of the death or on their birthday, the family can pull a few notes out and read them. It becomes a new, living ritual. It anchors the memory in the physical space of the home.
So it's not just a dusty souvenir from a sad day. It's an active tool for the future.
It's a tool for ongoing grief processing. And it's a tool that was co-created by your entire community. When you look at that canvas hanging on the wall, you aren't just seeing a painting of your loved one. You are seeing a visual reminder of the support network that surrounds you. You are seeing the love of your friends and family made visible. That is a powerful antidote to the profound isolation of grief.
The source also mentions holistic integration. It's not about throwing out the music or the eulogies.
No, definitely not. We're not saying cancel the eulogy. We were saying enhance it. The art should work alongside the storytelling, the music, the readings.
This is where that reference to the funeral program site comes in. They talk about the importance of a cohesive design.
Right. It should all feel intentional and connected. If you're going to do a memory jar, maybe the printed program has a little section that explains what it is and why you're doing it. Maybe the graphic design on the program echoes a theme that will be on the canvas.
It's all about clarifying the mission of the event. Every single element, the music you choose, the program design, the art activity, should be pulling in the same direction.
And what's that direction?
Healing, connection, authenticity.
Exactly. And while many families can absolutely DIY this, the source does mention that in certain situations, professional guidance can be really helpful.
You mean like hiring an art therapist?
Yes, or a grief counselor with this kind of training, especially if the death was particularly traumatic, a suicide, a sudden accident, the death of a child.
Why then specifically?
Because the emotions in the room might be incredibly raw and volatile. Having a trained professional there to hold the space, to manage the intensity, and to guide the art making so it stays therapeutic and doesn't spiral into something overwhelming, that can be an invaluable safety net.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, this sounds amazing, but when should I actually use it? Is this for every funeral?
It can be adapted for any situation. But the source suggests it is particularly high impact in a few specific scenarios.
Such as?
Sudden loss, where people are in deep shock and words completely fail them. Also, complicated grief, where the relationships were messy and there's unfinished business.
Or delayed memorials, which so many people have had to do recently.
Yes, a perfect use case. People couldn't gather for 6 months or a year. By the time they did, the initial raw shock was gone. They were in a different phase, ready to do deeper, more reflective work. Art is perfect for that phase 2 grieving.
And it seems especially suited for home-based gatherings.
Absolutely. If you're already in a comfortable living room, it feels much more natural to paint or write than if you're in a very formal, rigid funeral parlor where you might have to work a bit harder to set the right vibe.
All right, let's wrap this up. We've covered so much. The neuroscience, the practical toolkit, the logistics of creating the space. If we had to distill this entire deep dive down to the absolute essentials for our listener, what are the key takeaways?
Okay, number 1, grief requires action. It's a biological process. We cannot just sit and think our way out of trauma. We have to move through it with our bodies.
The only way out is through. And through, in this case, means using your hands.
Using your hands. Number 2, art provides a container. It can hold the emotions that are too big, too messy, or too complex for words. It gives the internal chaos an external shape.
And number 3, what's the last big idea?
The product does not matter. The process is everything. It is not about the final painting or the quality of the stones. It's about the act of standing shoulder to shoulder with people you love and making something together in a time of loss.
It completely changes the definition of what a good send-off is.
It really does. A good send-off isn't about how expensive the flowers were or how formal the service was. It's about connection. Did people leave feeling more empty and isolated? Or did they leave feeling seen, heard, and part of something meaningful?
It reminds me of that beautiful final thought from the expert in the text we read. They said that by choosing art, families affirm that healing doesn't require perfection.
It only requires presence.
Just show up.
Just show up. Pick up a pen, pick up a stone, be there with your whole self. That's enough.
I want to leave you, our listener, with a provocative thought to mull over. We usually look at grief as something to be endured, a terrible storm we have to hunker down and just survive. But what if we flip that script? What if we viewed grief not as a passive state, but as an active process of creation? What if the most honoring thing we can do for the dead is not just to weep for them, but to create something new and beautiful with the living?
That turns grief from a state of suffering into an active act of love.
It does, and I think that's a shift worth making. This has been a deep dive production for the Funeral Channel Network. Thank you so much for going there with us today. I know it's heavy stuff, but it's really important stuff.
It is. Keep asking the hard questions.
Thanks for listening. Keep learning.